how much more likely are you to encounter a boosted spawn? For example, during an event, when the developers say that there's a greater chance to encounter something, how much more likely is that? Now, I must preface this video with a disclaimer. We don't actually know the exact mechanics. I've spoken to Rainanix himself, and it is not verified exactly how this works. But we have a theory, we have an understanding of how it works and how much more likely boosted spawns actually happen. Welcome back to another Pokemon Sleep video, it's Bro Vinny here. Now, why do we actually want to know this? Well, let's take Water Week for example. All the water type Pokemon will get boosted spawn, but different areas have different sleep styles that can spawn. Some areas, for example Cyan Beach, has a very wide variety of boosted spawn Pokemon. Other areas, like Taupe Hollow, have a very limited range of boosted spawn Pokemon. So if you've seen my recommendation video on which area to go, I suggested that if you're only hunting for Wooper, you should go to Taupe Hollow. Now that recommendation doesn't change even with the understanding from this video. But one person in the comment section asked, is it actually true that just because you have less other Pokemon spawning, you would get more chance to see Wooper? And that's a very fair question, because in their experience, when they went to Snowdrop Tundra for a previous event, let's take the Summer Festival for example, they did not feel like Cramorant had a higher chance to spawn, even though there were less variety of other Pokemon at Snowdrop Tundra in much the same way as Wooper. So the question is, how are boosted spawns determined? Is it that a number of spawns are reserved for these boosted event Pokemon? Or is it that no matter which area you go to, every Pokemon just has the same boosted rate? Well, the answer lies somewhere in the middle. In fact, all boosted spawn Pokemon, based on our current understanding, have equal chance to spawn. Now, when I say Pokemon, I actually mean sleep style. Of course, if you have fewer sleep styles in an area, then overall you have fewer chance to see that Pokemon. But if an area has all of the sleep styles or has more of the sleep styles for the same Pokemon, then overall it has a higher chance to appear. But this would have applied even during normal circumstances when there's no boost. Regardless, you're gonna hear me say Pokemon and sleep style interchangeably, but I do mean sleep style. So all Pokemon that are boosted for an event are about equally boosted. In fact, based on the research from Al Wasabi on X Twitter, this is how much they are boosted by. When it's a slightly greater appearance rate, that sleep style is 3 times more likely than any other sleep style to appear. When it's greater appearance rate, then it's 5.8 times more likely to appear. And when it's much greater appearance rate, it's 10.7 times more likely to appear. Now, what this slightly greater and much greater represents is the wording given in the developer notes. So, for example, for Water Week, Pokemon have a greater appearance rate for all water types. And that is the middle number here, which represents the medium boosted chance. In other events like the Good Sleep Day, you might see a much greater appearance rate in the wording, in which case that sleep style will have 10.7 times more chance to appear. And if the wording says that there's a slightly greater chance to appear, then we're looking at a 3 times greater chance. But this doesn't really mean anything, because ultimately whether that sleep style actually spawns depends on how many other sleep styles it's competing with. And I recommend my previous video that explained this, where as you increase your drowsy power, your chance of encountering a specific Pokemon can either go up or down depending on the drowsy power and the competing factors. So if there are a lot of Pokemon that are being unlocked as you increase your drowsy power, then there's less chance for that Pokemon to spawn. But also, as you increase the drowsy power, you'll unlock more spawn count, you'll unlock more sleep styles of the Pokemon you're hunting, and also you're just generally building enough drowsy power to encounter that Pokemon. So in that video, I used Dratini as an example, and you can see that Dratini can get unlocked at Basic 1 requirement. But at the same time, you can see all these other Pokemon being unlocked as well. So the chance of a specific sleep style appearing, for example Dratini, even if it's boosted, let's say it's boosted to about 5 times the chance to appear, it still has to compete with all of these other Pokemon, even if individually they're only worth 1 times the rate. Now it's not as simple as that because there's also a rolling logic on determining the spawns that's happening at the same time. Remember that the total drowsy power requirement of all the spawns cannot add up to more than your drowsy power. And the last spawn out of all the spawns will always try to use the Pokemon sleep style with the highest drowsy power requirement using what remains of your drowsy power. So while we say there's an equal chance of all of these happening, but then there's a 5 times chance of the boosted spawn, if we're talking about a medium rate increase, it still doesn't exactly mean that the boosted spawn has a 5 times rate to occur. Additionally, not only do you have to unlock the tier, you also need to unlock the drowsy power requirement. So it's the interplay of all these factors that determine how likely your spawn is to occur. And if you do have the premium subscription to the RainNX calculator, you can see this in action, but remember, these are not verified numbers when we start talking about boosted spawns. This is what's approximated to be true based on the information that we have right now. So for example, if I've got Cleffa here that I'm hunting for under normal circumstances, at Siam Beach, I'm expecting approximately 0.5 of a Cleffa appearing. But when I go to this sleep style rate changer and then I turn on a much greater appearance rate, which is what happens during the day of the full moon during the good sleep day, the chart still largely looks the same, but if you look at the counts of Cleffa, we're looking at 3.2 counts, as you can see here, as opposed to 0.5. So that's approximately 6 times more Cleffa during the second day of the good sleep day events. Now, if at this point you go, bro Vinny, didn't you say when it's a much greater chance to appear, it should be 10 times more likely to appear? There does seem to be something a bit different to Good Sleep Day than other events when it uses the same wording. And again, this is not verified. This is not my research. I'm just basing this on how I understand the post made by Our Wasabi, is that even on Good Sleep Day, when it says there's a much greater chance to appear, the rate seems to be a bit lower than any other event that isn't Good Sleep Day. So this is a much greater chance to appear, and it seems that Cleffa only has about a 4.5 times chance to appear. So whether this is an error on the developer's part, this is something that was queried by this X post. Regardless, we're gonna put that aside for now and go with the numbers at the top here. By the way, I'll leave a link in the comments section below to credit this user for their research. But generally speaking, anytime a developer note says there's a much greater chance to appear, we're going with these numbers here. If it says there's just a greater chance to appear, we're going with this number, and when there's a slightly greater chance to appear, we're going with this number here. Alright, let's put the numbers aside and go back to what that actually means for when you have to decide where to go for an event. So what that actually means, based on what we know so far about how boosted spawns work, is that if you go to an area with a low variety of boosted spawns, you will overall see less event Pokemon. But because there's less event Pokemon, the ones that are there will have less competition as well. So even though they all may have an equal boosted rate to spawn, Wooper in Taupe Hollow doesn't have competition. For the 3 to 8 spawns that you get every session, there's more chance for Wooper to show up. But it can get a bit boring if you're hoping to see a lot of event Pokemon overall. Because over at Cyan Beach, even though Wooper comparatively has less chance to spawn because every other water type has a boosted rate to spawn, competing out the 3 to 8 slots that you've got, you will have a more fun time at Cyan Beach because you'll be able to see overall more event Pokemon. So maybe on an average event day during Water Week at Cyan Beach, you might see a Totodile, a Slowpoke, a Squirtle, and a Wooper, and then 4 other non-event spawns. Whereas at Taupe Hollow, on an average day, you might only see 2 Wooper, and then 6 other non-event spawns. So this is the current understanding. You're going to get more event spawns if there's more variety. But of course, as a result, you will have less of each. So this is why the recommendation hasn't changed. If you're still hunting for a specific Pokemon, it's better to go to an area that has less other things that's getting boosted as well. But it's just not going to be very fun for you if you're hoping to see a lot of these other water types, especially if Shiny were boosted for an event, along with the boosted spawns. So once again, let's say we're heading into Water Week. If you're hunting for the ingredient specialists, Squirtle and Quaxly, then Lakeside is for you, but unfortunately Wooper won't show up there at all. If you're hunting for the skill specialist Psyduck and Slowpoke, then Snowdrop is the one for you. If you only want the new Pokemon Wooper, then you should go to Taupe Hollow. If you want a fun time for the water event and just see a lot of water types, then you should go to Cyan Beach. Or if you're hunting for Totodile, then definitely Cyan Beach, since no other area gets Totodile besides Greengrass. But of course, Greengrass has another problem. Greengrass has a huge amount of other sleep types that are not water types as well, so then you've got even more competition for your 3 to 8 spawns. My recommendation, generally speaking, for free-to-play players is that you focus on one Pokemon at a time because you've only got so many biscuits. That helps you build up your friendship level so that you can, for example, get Berry Finding S on Totodile or Helping Bonus on Squirtle or Quaxly after you reach friendship level 10. So narrowing down your spawns actually makes a lot of sense for free-to-play players to maximize the value of your one bonus biscuit a day. But if you are coming to Taupe Hollow during this event, don't complain if you feel like you're not seeing much water types at all. If you haven't seen my last video on how spawns actually work, I highly recommend it because it's crucial to the understanding of how boosted spawns actually work as well. Thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.